We need you to engage this YouTube channel. So like, comment, subscribe, or click on the notification bell and click on the links in the description to contribute.
Maybe we should start this episode, Amira, by saying salamtik to Sara
Salamtik
al-Asma.
Sarah.
Salamtik Sarah, I don't know you, but
Get well soon.
yeah.
So the reason Amira is here is because Sara fell sick and Amira stepped in, and I'm really glad you did. Amira joined the podcast, it's been like 3 weeks ago, maybe 3 episodes earlier.
Yes.
You were the second guest on
Yes.
GENXZ. And I immediately drew a liking to you when I first met you years ago, but I could tell with the way you talk in front of a camera and microphone, you're a natural at this, and you showed up, you read the articles, you're ready, you've been bossing me around, telling me what I'm doing wrong, you've got paper and pen ready, you're showing me where the files are, so I'm just here to support Amira today. But Wael, we talked about doing this, I think maybe 2 years ago was the first time.
Yes.
If not, maybe longer. But it's when you started writing regularly at Lorient Today.
That's true.
And at Alia's, I see you regularly. You join my live episodes quite a bit. I thought, yeah, it's time to celebrate some of your work. And we decided to focus in on a few topics that you've been writing about recently. Before we get into that, before we jump into your written word, there's something I want to ask you. Why are you a journalist?
I've always had passion for politics, and it's not because I chose to have passion for politics. It's because I come from a semi-political family, like you do. So my parents met because they were both members of the Lebanese Communist Party.
Oh, I see. I didn't know that.
Yes. And my uncles from my mother's family were very political. Some of them fought during the Israeli occupation of Lebanon. They fought against Israel. So I come from this background, and my first awakening to Lebanese politics was during 2005, actually, because like a lot of people, like a lot of things were happening at the time. The assassination of Rafi al-Hariri, the political assassinations. There was a turning point back then. And I wasn't in the 14th of March protest myself, but my parents were, they were against the Syrian occupation of Lebanon, and they were supportive of the movement back then.
Were they members then of the Communist Party?
No. They were all in the past.
Yeah.
Then, according to what they think, the Syrian regime infiltrated the party. I'm not advocating any of this. Infiltrated the party, so they felt detached from the party as it currently stands. So yes, during the 2005, they were supportive of the protests back then. So I started to be interested in politics, and it was so for me it was natural to keep following up on what's going on. The Sabah Ayyar, whatever happened, it was interesting times, and it wasn't the case for my 3 siblings. So I guess some people have tendencies, and when they come from such background, it resonates with them more. That being said,
Why you mentioned Communist Party up front?
Yes.
But your writing, or at least the way you approach politics, seems more like your analysis, not the Communist Party's analysis. Is there a moment in you where you kind of took your own turn? Because you mentioned it early. There's almost there's a political angle to your family's past, but I don't think of you as a communist member or a communist or leftist journalist. I think of you less in those terms.
Yeah, I think, and partially my parents have to be given credit for this, because they did not force an ideology upon me. So they were members back then of the Lebanese Communist Party. I don't know how much of it of typical communist members. They're not just members like communist. Ideologically, they were not very much, I would say, but they never forced an ideology, which is a very good thing. And in my approach to everything, I try to detach from any upbringing. We all have our biases, and you can't completely escape that. But I try as much as I can to detach from all the societal upbringing, whatever bias you can have in my writing. So probably that's why. I discovered socialism and all by myself. It wasn't through my parents.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So even communism to you comes from your
That's true.
writing and reading, not your parents.
Yeah. I mean, they would tell me stuff and tell me what happened historically, World War II, Stalin, Soviet Union. But like when I really learned about Marxism and socialism and communism, it was through my own reading, not through my family.
And sorry to steal the mic longer, but I wanted to ask you earlier, how old were you in 2005?
I have to calculate. So 1993, 2005.
You were 12.
I was 12, yes.
Amira, how old were you?
6 years old.
6. Okay. Your parents, I'm going to guess the way you're describing them, supported that movement then.
Sure.
I was there. I was 24.
Of course.
2000, yeah. So that's a nice way of looking back at a moment that maybe brings us together. But I know that...
I have a question.
Oh, sure.
What did it feel like starting, ما زال عم نحكي عن الثورات, what did it feel like starting your career in journalism uprising تبع October 19?
This is a very good question.
I wrote that for her, by the way.
No, you didn't. Ronnie.
I did not write that. It's true.
But Ronnie, I think you were saying something about that moment in particular. Then if I may, then we can go to that, because I feel that you had a...
I wrote both questions.
Yeah. Definitely did color my politics. And back then, you would have pretty much the same opinions as your family. Like when you're 12. So my parents were supportive of the movement, but at the same time they were also supportive of the resistance, so-called resistance Hezbollah back then. So it definitely did shape my politics. Like I was, if not necessarily a fan, supportive of the resistance, at the same time supportive of the movement against the Syrian regime at the time. So yes, October 17th wasn't the moment where I had this political awakening. There are stages.
So pro-Hezbollah, anti-Assad?
In a way, yes. It is contradictory in a way. My parents, I guess, had multi-personalities. No, it doesn't have to contradict. I'm just kidding.
No, I think it's a segment of the population that wasn't maybe focusing on Hezbollah then.
I mean, even you said in the Ghusl podcast that back then Hezbollah was a different Hezbollah to you.
Yeah. But it's nice to hear the way you talk about, I'll say it differently. Listening to you as a friend, I always heard that in the background, although you don't necessarily say it.
Yeah.
But I could feel like for you, October 17 is not defining you entirely.
No, not really. I mean, not October 17, but journalism, because I started my journalism career 1 week before the October 17th revolution. Journalism changed my perspective a bit on politics. Not a lot, not fundamentally, but it makes you aware of the complexities of Lebanese politics by detail instead of hearing about what the analysts are describing, like attending parliament sessions, attending cabinet sessions. You understand politics from the inside more, which is a good thing, I guess.
So let's lean on Amira's question, and maybe Amira, I'll let you guide this section. Your beginnings of journalism in October 17, and maybe the fast forwarding into what you're writing about now. So I don't know enough. I'll let maybe Amira, your question was great in itself.
Actually هلا أنت عم تحكي the fact إنه أنت مثلا عم بتكون على الأرض وعم بتشارك وعم بتعيش أنت things اللي عم تكتب عنه بالارتكلز تبعك. قد ايه is it different من الاشياء اللي نحن بنقراها، بمعنى قد ايه في fake news
So this is a very good
يعني
question.
لأنه أنت مثلا هلا عم بتقول عن الجلسة بمجلس النواب أو whatever، أنت جوا، نحن عم نسمع أخبار من برا، وفي كتير أوقات ما بنعرف، يعني بنقرأ خبر أوكي ما بنعرف إذا صح أو لا. بالنسبة لك how does it work وكيف نحن as audience فينا؟
Yeah, that's a very good question because this is something very important.
I also wrote that question.
In Lebanon, I don't want to criticize my colleagues and like other news outlets, but in Lebanon, I feel, and I was more aware of this when I became a journalist. I think we are a lot more than we should rumor-based journalism for a lot of media outlets. Instead of so what Lorient today is and Lorient Aujourd'hui is aspiring to be right now is like it's trying to be as fact-checking as possible, like differentiating what's rumor and what's facts and what's analysis. So getting into journalism made me more aware of that. For example, I remember when the famous Tariq Bitar cabinet session, when they marginalized him, I forgot what the decision was, but the reports the session was still ongoing, the reports that were being leaked about the cabinet session were very different than what George Al-Dahi said after the session. And it happens oftentimes. Like the cabinet sessions, I said I attended them. You can't attend the session. So like you would get leaks before the session ends. And then it turns out, oftentimes, it turns out that these leaks were wrong. It's just assumptions or whatever, however these journalists got the leaks from.
So sorry, your reporting comes from leaks, not from being there?
No, I would be, this is very important for people to know. So journalists wouldn't be in the session, they would be at the Sarai, but not in the room where the session
waiting
was.
outside.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So like when you see reports coming out of what is happening during the session, if it's not Mikata's office official account or something like this, it's basically leaks from the inside. Allegedly from direct sources, but a lot of times it's not. And oftentimes, because usually the information minister holds a press conference after, oftentimes he denies a lot of the stuff that was being leaked. Parliament as well, some sessions are live, like you can see them on TV, but some of them are in closed doors, only journalists can attend. And this is where the fishy stuff happen actually during these sessions, because yes, journalists are aware of it, but it's not broadcasted on live TV. I don't know if I should say this, but like Parliament, the voting process is kind of not very ideal. Like I've seen I've seen votes where the majority of MPs voted for something, and the parliament speaker would be like, oh, let's get it back to the parliamentary committees, as if no voting happened. So basically, that's how much the parliament speaker has.
How do you see that? Is it something
You count.
Oh.
Because it's by raising their hands.
Right, yeah. So how do you report on that? Or do you report on that? Or do you get thrown out when you report on that?
No, you don't get thrown out. It's basically, like I've seen many people say that. Jubran Touhani once said that, someone said that Jubran Touhani, when he first entered politics, was surprised about how the voting process takes place. Like they would be like, okay, start voting, and the votes wouldn't be counted yet, and the parliament speaker would be famously saying "Suddik" before he actually counts. Because what happens, like the theory is that he would have met with the heads of the political parties, and he knows how the vote would turn out to be.
Yeah.
But I've seen votes where I counted the majority of MPs voting for something, and the parliament speaker would be like, "Oh no, let's get it back to the parliamentary committees." And regarding the parliamentary committees, also as cabinet, we cannot attend these sessions. So the parliamentary committees, like the finance and budget committee, like justice and the administration, very important discussions happen there.
Exactly.
Like they're most important, more than the general assembly discussions. Journalists can't attend these sessions, and organizations like the Legal Agenda refuse to attend from the outside these sessions because you can't attend. So you go to Parliament actually and wait outside, and you wait for leaks and you wait for MPs to go out. So Legal Agenda, for example, refuses to go to Parliament during these sessions because they think it's not right that the journalists can't attend the sessions.
But going back to what Amira asked about fake news, does Lorient today or Lorient Le Jour, do they have a mechanism in-house to monitor what they might spread, which is potentially misinformation? Is there
this is the aspiration. I'm not going to claim we're perfect at it, and we're constantly improving. Especially when Lorient today got launched. I guess a lot of progress happened, and Lorient Le Jour also took a decision of like being that voice. Like, well, what does Lorient Le Jour have to offer other than all great things that's an old?
But what does it come down to? Do you just have to get more than one source always for a particular report?
Like for example, even if my competitors, other news outlets, are reporting leaks, I would wait for the cabinet session to end for me to report on something.
I see.
I will not report rumors,
Okay.
for example.
Right.
So it's not about catching the moment.
Yeah, exactly. And this is, this is, I think, what Lorient Le Jour, Lorient Today, or any news outlet, the message of any news outlet should be. It should be that. Because these voices are not many in Lebanon. Like the TVs have to be, understandably, maybe, very fast into reporting the news. But like even newspapers, they rely on how do newspapers function. Sometimes they are a tool to send a message to other politicians, no? Instead of being the most credible source of news out there.
So you're slower and you're reporting, but then you're trying to get most of the, if not all the information vetted, which I think draws it back to what you got it, why you're in this world to begin with. And I'm sorry if I keep stealing the mic. Whenever you want to talk, you just take over. I'm guessing covering Nabih Berri's duplicity is not what took you to journalism. And I think October 17 and being stuck in Sarai have nothing to do with each other. So why are you a journalist? You mentioned your parents are ex-communist members.
Yes.
But I still don't know why you are writing for a living. I didn't get to what is it about journalism? Because you're a news reporter.
Yes.
And you're becoming a features writer. I think you are kind of both now. But I still don't know what drew you into this profession. Are you trying to achieve a goal? Is there something political happening? Because you could be in any other profession that revolves around politics.
Yes.
You could be in a political party.
Yeah.
You could be an activist that's in
Humanitarian, for example.
humanitarian or anything, but you chose the written word.
Yes.
And not a very influencer-friendly version of journalism. You're a real journalist. You write patiently, and I read your articles patiently, and you're young. So what is the draw to this profession?
I mean, the interest in what's going on, as I explained, comes natural. So I don't have to make a lot of effort to be interested in my job when I'm in journalism. So it's not a job that I have to squeeze some skills out of me. Following news is very natural to me. Sometimes, because you can't follow 24/7 what's going on. Sometimes I would come home and like my mother would have Al-Arabiya or Al-Jadid on, and I would listen to the news while she's listening to the news. So it kind of comes natural. So why did I choose this profession? I guess like everyone, they want to have their own take on what's going on. I wanted to have my own take on politics in Lebanon. But when I went deeply into journalism, you change the perspective of what you can add to journalism changes. Instead of me giving my opinions about every issue, it becomes more of, I want journalism in Lebanon to be more fact-based more than rumor-based. And that's a very important thing, in my opinion at least. So yes, my takes and stuff, I don't tweet as much now, at least for now. Maybe I'll tweet more my take on what's going on more in the future, but my main focus is distinguishing facts from rumors in Lebanon. I think this is what is needed the most.
I'll ask one more question, then I'll let Amira speak. Are you trying to fix something that you saw broken? Because I still don't have an answer. What you're telling me is something that's, I think, 50% of the story. The other 50% I'm trying to understand.
Yes.
I don't hear anything about writing when you're a kid. I haven't heard anything about storytelling as a profession.
Yes.
I haven't heard any other journalist name that inspired you. All I see in front of me is somebody who's young and passionate about a profession.
Yes.
But watching Al Arabiya with your mom is not enough to do that. I'm trying to understand why you're in Lorient today. And add to that, you're pushing yourself to write comfortably in English.
Yes.
You're working in it's a respectable outlet. So you've already pushed yourself.
Yes.
At the start. You didn't just sort of, you're not blogging or you're not sharing posts for the sake of it. You're in a news agency.
Yes.
I don't know why. I don't know what took you to this world yet.
I mean, my major is English linguistics.
Okay.
It's not journalism.
Okay.
Yeah, I searched that.
So
I see. I didn't know. Okay, so you studied English. I didn't check his LinkedIn. No. I should have done that.
So I'm not gonna claim I'm the best writer out there, but when I wrote something, if someone sees it, they would think it's remarkable. So mix.
That's a quote I'm going to steal. I'm going to take that from the podcast and throw that on you. Talk about it's humble, you know. Very humble.
No, I'm not. This is not my best skill. But like for the average person, I suppose, writing when I wrote something in a second language, a foreign language, it was always impressive for some people, at least, not everyone. So mix the passion for English language, for writing, and interest in politics, and you get you get an interest in journalism.
But then you could just be an author. You could write short stories about everything. You're choosing journalism.
But there's no politics in short stories.
Yeah. Okay. So the politics
and
linguistics,
English and writing.
Right. Okay.
Mix both of them.
With all the background.
Yeah. Exactly, with the background.
I think of you sort of as an activist, but a quiet one.
Okay.
And that's kind of the way I see your role in journalism, because over time, I've seen your writing shift into one of narrative. And you sent us 3 articles. We can get into more if necessary, but 3 articles that are talking about, in a way, the breakdown of society.
Sure.
And one that, in a way, reminds me of the early 90s more than anything is an article you wrote about license plates or lack thereof all over the country. And you chose certain characters, mostly near Baalbek, talking about, this is how it's done. And I like that you even bring them to life a bit.
Yeah.
It's almost like there's a sense of humor sometimes in them. It's like, why would I do it?
Sure.
Aslan, where am I going to go to do it?
Yeah.
And there's one individual who has certain plates for certain destinations. So first I'd like to ask you, why did you write this story? And whether or not this symbolizes to you a larger breakdown that's happening. Not necessarily violence, more like this is the ungovernable country we live in.
It's a symptom of the economic crisis, for sure. I mean, going back to when I started 1 week before the October 17th revolution, and then everything else started happening. The economic crisis, COVID, the Beirut explosion. But we've been writing about more or less the symptoms of the economic crisis since 4 years now. So this is one of the symptoms of the economic crisis in the sense that
بس of the economic crisis ولا غياب الدولة ككل
Oh, definitely.
يعني أكتر من I think من economic crisis بس.
Definitely the state was not perfect even before the economic crisis, but I think it exacerbated.
It exacerbated لأنه في economic crisis ولا لأنه بطل في state to hold people accountable for what they're doing?
بس هو before 2019 there was no proper state, right?
بس كان functioning أكتر
Okay,
شوي,
so
I
what
think.
what happened from since 2019 until now? Why did the state get worse in your opinion?
إيه, from the
More or
economic
less,
crisis.
right? Yeah, and then everything, every result that happened after is the symptom of that. Be it the bank heist that we've seen happening, be it the increase of crime, be it the phenomena of the rising and the rise and the non-existence of the license plates. And it's on both elements. Like, it's because of the security situation. Like, I don't think they would deny it, but I don't think the ISF have as much resources as before. We see it. If you go and file a complaint, they would be very slow, and they would be like, "Oh, we can't do it." Sometimes.
I'm curious why you chose this geography in particular. Is this something that you wanted to address in particular, or from your coverage, is this where it's happening the most?
Can I be honest?
Yeah.
I'm gonna be raw. It's you search for people who are willing to speak to you, and you don't. Even if a car has more people without license plates, you can only report on when people choose to talk to you.
Oh, Akkad is where it's most. Is that
No. I'm hypothetically. Let's say,
Yeah.
Even if Dahi, whatever.
What?
So Baalbek is the area where people were least scared to talk to me.
Why do you think that is? Why are they the least scared ببعلبك?
They've all taken your counseling services. Now they're willing to talk.
Maybe.
They express themselves better now.
Maybe, yeah. This is a psychological phenomena, I guess, that needs to be explained. Maybe they are the least that are scared that are open about breaking the law for some reason. Maybe it's because of this, and they had a sense of humor Like, what am I supposed to do? Like the Nef asked, am I supposed not to drive my cars? One of the people told me in the article. Am I supposed to keep my cars parked?
But they're comfortable telling you that they're breaking the law.
Yes.
More than other people would be in other regions.
Even anonymously. Like, I did not mention anything, but even anonymously, people would be. I tried to call a number of Bolt drivers, and they were scared to. That's one of the ways to get to people without license plates.
But let's push on what Amira asked. Why do you think Baalbek is more confident in talking about crime?
This is a hard question. Is it because the clan culture is by definition an anti-state culture? And breaking the law is something to brag about? I mean, if you think of clans as a concept, it started because states used to suppress a portion of people, and clans existed to defend these people from the oppression of the state. So that's the best explanation I can find. I don't know how precise
حدا
it is.
عم يفرض حاله, which is something هيدا شيء منيح لإلهم.
Yeah, and I suppose in the culture it's something rather than shameful, it's something rebellious.
But then why would they talk to you? You're some guy from Laylaki wa Hazmi.
Oh, they did not know my background.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah.
They had no idea what my background was.
So, with your permission, how do you get these contacts? Do you drive around without a license plate until someone says, "Hey,
oftentimes,
that's my car"?
That's the problem. That's the problem with the newspapers around the world, not just like the New York Times. They are city-based rather than understanding. They are based in New York, so if they are less likely to understand other states than New York because they are based there. That's my opinion. So also, if it's in Baalbek, we have correspondence in the north and in Baalbek and in a lot of areas. So it would be through a correspondent. They would introduce me to someone, or a friend of mine. I would ask them about the area and about people who are willing to speak. So this mission in particular of finding people who are willing to speak without license plates, you wouldn't go field reporting. You wouldn't go there and see a person without a license plate, stop them. That would be maybe reckless. Hey, stop! Can you please talk to me? Instead, you ask people. It's through people.
And is just to know the process, is this something over WhatsApp? I mean, are you just chatting with them over the phone?
A call, sometimes, sometimes you text, like sometimes.
Okay, so you're not actually going to the car itself?
It depends on the story.
Are any of these individuals people that you met in person?
From this article, no.
No.
And
Okay.
other articles, definitely. But
No, because I was curious about the risk you're willing to do to touch on something I think that is risky. I mean, if I think
not much, I would say.
no,
No.
I like. Oh, so that shows you when somebody knows the area better than.
Yeah.
Why not? You think you're protected by them?
If you go to Baalbek, you're a journalist, you're not messing with any political party. You're not trying to show that they are drug dealers. Like, it's not, it's just people without license plates, which is which many people don't have license plates. And the NEFA is closed, so it's justified. I don't think there's much risk into investigating that. Like, it's not...
Interesting. I mean, you're the only person I know that's written about this.
Yeah.
Even though it's something I see, not forget Baalbek, I see it everywhere.
Sure. On my
Here.
when I'm driving everywhere, you see it everywhere, right?
And I get a
It
bad
increased a
feeling.
lot.
Yes, exactly. Increased remarkably. But I wanted, maybe I can ask both of you, do you feel that very deep uneasiness when you see it?
Before we answer this question, sorry, I will let you answer this, but because we said that it's partially because of the security situation, but it's mostly because of the NEFA. Because the vehicle registration center has been, because of a mass arrest, because of a big scandal, it closed for long months, and now it reopened and it's still experiencing a lot of traffic, so it's not fully functional anymore. So it's mostly because of this. It's not just because of the security, lack of resources for the ISF.
That's why the numbers went up.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
But do you guys get that when you're driving? Or maybe, I don't know, do you both drive?
I do.
You drive. Amira, do you? Yeah. Do you get that uneasiness when you see a car in front of you with no license plate? Does it have any discomfort when you're driving?
And I keep an eye.
Yeah, right. You keep an eye. I get nervous.
I
I'm
don't.
cautious.
I'll tell you why though, because I know the NEFA situation, and I know, like for example, a lot of people are without a license, a driving license, and the Interior Minister himself said we will not punish people for not having driving licenses from now until a year. He extended the period because he knows that the situation is tricky. So yes,
but it's different when a car has no registration. That car can hit you.
Sure.
And he mentioned this in the article.
Yeah,
exactly.
This is one of the risks.
If anything
Right.
happens,
And you know, by law, a lawyer Ayman Ra'ad told me that the punishment of a car with no license plates is higher than normal theft. Like if you steal a car, the punishment for it is higher than any other theft, because the law kind of interprets that there's a big percentage that you are stealing this car to commit another crime.
Right. Yeah.
and we've read a lot of news like this, by the way.
Yes. So
I'll embed it in the episode, but it's called "Cars with No License Plates: A Rising and Dangerous Phenomenon." If anything, that's, I think, of the articles you sent earlier, that's the friendliest article.
yeah.
And that's a crime in itself. I want to get into a subject I think the three of us can talk about, which is something that's not easy to write about in any publication because emotions rise. Sectarianism is discussed fairly or unfairly. Demographics get in the way.
Sure.
The right to nationality, whether it's fair or not, fathers versus mothers, everything comes out of one story. A proposed law could restrict stateless people's access to Lebanese citizenship. What's at stake? Now, this is not an article particularly addressing Syrian refugees. It's addressing stateless people, which I think in itself has that loophole, which means you could get citizenship with that stateless label. And you write about the article that the loophole is being closed, or potentially being closed by an FPM MP. His name escapes me now.
Hassan Atallah.
Hassan Atallah, thank you. the first question is the kind of narrative you're offering, which is, I think I got from the article, whether this is right or not, I don't know, is that doing this will only harm more people rather than help anyone. I think that's the bigger message in the article. You may not have wanted that to come out that way, but that's how I read it. You cite primarily NGO figures and people we know as pointing this and saying this will only exacerbate the statelessness of these stateless people and will not guarantee Lebanese the right to apply later. So maybe we can get into why you wrote this article and whether or not you have, not an agenda here, but more like, is that something that you believe in too and that's why this article was written?
I definitely believe that the way to solve this issue is not through a law like this. I mean, the matter is very, very complex, not just to stateless people. You have to also deal with the right of citizenship to like women giving the citizenship to their children or Palestinians, or we should discuss Syrian refugees as well. So yes, I wrote this article after the law was proposed and was discussed in the parliamentary committees that would ban anyone who was born in 2011 and became stateless from obtaining the Lebanese citizenship. So basically, according to UN conventions, stateless people have the right for citizenship in Lebanon. So if they file an appeal to the courts here, they potentially can obtain it. However, the process is a very complicated one. Like, not every stateless people, I mean, the far majority have not obtained this citizenship. But it also could potentially ban Lebanese people, like people of Lebanese fathers, from getting the Lebanese citizenship. So that's why organizations have criticized this proposal. They framed it as the not homophobia, the racism around this issue could potentially ban Lebanese people from Lebanese fathers of obtaining citizenship. So how does a person become stateless? For many reasons, but the main reason is if their parents did not register them within a year of them being born. And the MP Ghassan Atallah claimed that in a lot of cases, Syrian fathers or parents would like bribe Mukhtars to not register
as Syrian refugees.
Them as Syrian refugees, their children, but as stateless, so that they have the right to apply for the citizenship later. That's his claim. I don't know if it's true or not. But when I asked him about the Lebanese people being banned from getting that citizenship, he said that the law is still in its primitive form, and we are yet to find a solution for this loop. Yes.
Okay, but let's go into your own personal objective here. Do you think of media's role as trying to prevent a law like that from being implemented?
It's more of, it should be more, in my opinion, informative. So like explaining to the readers what the subject is, like the stateless issue. Why do we have stateless people in Lebanon? We have 27,000 stateless people. What is the history behind it? Do stateless people have
what is the number?
27,000.
So we actually know the official number.
No, around, sorry.
Oh, sorry. But we know that it's roughly 27,000.
Yes.
That's the legally approved stateless.
It's people who have done research on this subject, like Syrian.
Oh, okay.
They estimate it to be around 27,000 people.
Oh, wow. So it's a very small number, given the number of refugees in the country.
Sure, but that's the issue. Like, I guess you can make the case better for stateless people than refugees, because a lot of them have been living in the country since Lebanon's creation, maybe. And the 1994 or 1993 normalization gave 200,000 people citizenship. A third of them, I think, were stateless, even though the normalization was aimed at giving these stateless people that citizenship, because I guess there was so much pressure from the international community.
Could we get into a back and forth here? Maybe I can have you guys talk about this. The reasons why this is such a nervous train wreck to talk about, because it's okay. Let me say it from my side first.
Yes.
It's a very nuanced article. But I do know in that article, and I
Yes.
think it's safe to say, you're pointing the direction that this law would be bad if implemented.
Because this is not the way to deal with the issue.
Right,
And
and
you should deal with it in a general
right, and this is where it gets to me more interesting because, and I'll say this again and again and again, you're not a journalist. There is an activist within you. I feel it, and I know it. It comes out. It comes out in a very carefully measured way, because you're not just a neutral reporter. There is an opinion that expresses itself, and it matches a lot of the opinions shared among civil society. I think it happens to coincide with it. In other words, you're not just writing a balanced give and take article. It's not like, oh, this is the FPN's position. That's another.
Oh, I think
He's
I am.
opinionated.
I think I am. But I think every person has their own opinions that they refrain from saying sometimes because they want a nuanced article. I mean, to you, it was like the message is clear on this one. But
Maybe I misread it. Maybe.
No,
but
no,
I-
it's not the misreading.
Yeah.
And I'm not criticizing other journalists. But when I talk to a source or an activist about their opinions, when I ask them, I don't choose the activist that would reflect that I would know what they're gonna say. That would reflect my opinion. I try to be as honest as possible on this. And oftentimes I would have an opinion about something, and the activist or the expert or whatever would surprise me with their opinion, and my opinion would change along the line.
That's
so he's
fair.
very open. I
Yeah,
think
you're-
this is the word. Yeah.
Yes, open, but I mean, okay.
But I think, Ronnie, I think deep down everyone has their own
Okay.
take on stuff.
If I could say it better, there's an opinion within the articles that is growing and showing itself more over time. The characters you talk about in the license plate article, you're bringing them to life in a colorful way, not in a prejudice way.
Sure.
You're not talking about them as if these people should go to jail tomorrow. You're actually, in a way, humoring them and showing that the state is more to blame than them.
Sure.
Yeah, so there's that angle.
Indirectly.
Right, indirectly, which means there's a humanitarian streak within you, I think, that grows over time. I don't think this has to do with parents or grandparents belonging to a party like the Communist Party. I think this is you.
Definitely not the
Yeah, this is-
grandparents.
yeah, well, it's you. I think it's you. And then in this article, you're talking about the real threat this poses to Lebanese without registering now, or potentially hurts other people later, but there's no condemnation whatsoever about the Syrian refugee disaster.
Sure.
So I think you are shaping a narrative, maybe. But I want to ask you both this question, with permission. Why do you think this type of discussion brings out the worst instincts in Lebanese? You're a psychologist, you're a journalist, and you're touching on this subject. Well, maybe we could do a back and forth. here.
I talked about it وقت عملنا الابيسود. So أنا بالنسبة لي كتير we talk about national identity وقد إيه فكرة إنه نجنس هود الأشخاص معقول مش معقول هي it's a threat a symbolic threat لكتير أشخاص لما بعدنا عم نحكي عن demographics والأرقام وفي أشياء بنحكيهم in our daily life وما بننتبه بس إن كتير إلهم معنى
Sure.
أكلونا إنه this is demographics فإنه مننكتهم أوقات بس هن real symbolic it's not a real it's a symbolic threat I think it all comes from there.
From fear of that demography
Imbalance.
change. Yeah. Even when you bring up the subject of abolishing the sectarian system, this comes up, no?
Yeah.
أقل example قد إيه قلنا مش عاملين إحصاءات بلبنان لأنه whenever منفكر بصير لا ما المسيحية صاروا كتير قليل الإسلام صاروا أكتر أكلونا لا بلاها لأنه إذا رجعنا حطينا the real numbers they will feel threatened all over again اللي هو شعور التهديد مثل كأنه كل حدا عم بيهدد التاني.
But in your experiences together, is it purely numbers? That's the real problem here?
لا بس هن النمبرز هن السيمتومز تبع from of the fear في خوف من الآخر قد ما نحكي تعايش وبنطلع على البترون وبننزل على الجنوب في خوف من الآخر.
It's not only sectarian. It is. You mean numbers as in representation in politics?
So I'll tell you my psychological way of reading this article. Knowing that the number is fairly small, it doesn't seem to me to ruffle enough feathers when every other feather is ruffled when you talk about Syrian refugees.
Oh, I see. You mean when it comes to stateless people in particular?
Yeah. So this emphasis on stateless people
Yes.
and trying to close the loophole on that. Yeah, I guess to me it seems like it's
Definitely, it's a populist stance. It's definitely. I mean, it's definitely a populist because the number is not very big.
right.
It's not always about the number, it's the idea.
So can we talk about that a bit?
Yes,
Yeah,
وفي الفكرة بس سوري قبل ما هي في الفكرة تبع كل التروما تبع النظام السوري بلبنان.
Okay, so that
في فكرة
yeah.
إنه أصلاً نحنا بكتير أوقات ما بنقول النظام السوري بنقول السورية which is not true.
That's true.
في نظام سوري وفي الأشخاص اللي معهم الجنسية
You are
السورية.
right. Yeah.
So في كمان إنه ما ضلهم عنا 15 بنرجع على السيمبوليك ضلهم عنا 15 سنة بدهم ياخدوا الجنسية كمان إنه في التروما باك جراوند اللي بعدها.
Okay, so that goes into.
This is from psychology يعني.
Yeah.
أنا هيك
But regarding stateless people, I don't know if it has that kind of.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, kind of. I mean, FPM is, and it's not just. It's not just FPM. Like other parties would have taken the same stance.
Right.
And if they were to approve it, to approve the law, it's not just FPM who are approving it. So FPM or other parties, one of their not role, what's the word for it? One of their slogans is like not normalizing Syrians and Lebanon.
Right. Yeah.
The presence of Syrians in Lebanon and not keeping them there and working on their repatriation. So this is one of their ways to prevent this from happening. Which is what their voters are gonna like, and it's not just FPM. Just to clarify this.
Okay, so let's then take that, and that's why this article, maybe the stateless issue, maybe that kind of bill passes, perhaps, and it doesn't have the outcry that you would imagine because those numbers are fairly small. And let's imagine now for a moment you have an opinion on the Syrian refugee population's predicament.
Yes.
And you have the way to explain our fears, justified or not, over the Syrian regime and associating them with the Syrian regime. How are you guys able to get to these conclusions when the overwhelming majority of people, I think over time, have shown themselves to be discriminatory, prejudice, want the Syrians to leave,
Sure.
are eager, and perhaps even to the point that they blame European powers, this is an odd explanation, for keeping them in Lebanon. That narrative has taken shape now. It's almost like we're the ones who want them out and Europeans want them to stay here.
Sure.
That kind of, it sounds like sloppy conspiratorial stuff, but that narrative has taken hold.
Sure.
So how did you guys come to conclusions that are minoritarian but maybe more noble?
Looking at the world, I think refugees it's a very common thing to blame refugees for the country's own problems. So if you follow any foreign country's policy, this would be an easy thing to figure out early on. And like, of course, being friends with a lot of refugees, it makes it more helpful to humanize them instead of, you can't blame your friends because they find jobs and work for the economic crisis or the political situation, hardships that your own country is facing. I guess this is the case for me.
So you have friends that are
Syrians? I have Syrian friends.
Yeah, but in journalism itself or just in...
No, in life.
Yeah, so that has better shaped your perspective.
Sure, but it's not only that. It's because it's a common thing that politicians use. But still, for example, imitates a lot of right-wing politicians, not just with this issue, but like if you compare Trump and Bashir, you would find a lot of commonalities, including this issue.
I think it's important to take a step back, to zoom out, to reassess, or not to act on our impulsive
First impulses.
on our frustration. So to take a step back, to reflect on things. Personally, this is what I do. Plus, I have هيك the curiosity لأنه I'm interested in social psychology to understand شو هيدا الشيء اللي بيخلي هالقد في society هالقد مقتنعة بشيء معين، أو ليه في هيدا الجروب اللي كله رايح بهيدا الاتجاه مش بهي الاتجاه. So I try to understand what's underlying whatever it is، مش بس بهيدا الموضوع. I think it's important that you mentioned our relatives and family. لأنه at some point I think we are responsible to unlearn what we learned. So نحن بركي في كتير عالم عيالها عندها هيدا السردية تبع إنه بركي أكلونا، بركي إنه شو عم يعملوا هون، وأخذوا لنا الشغل بعد كان بعده عم يحكي أخذوا لنا الأشغال. فكمان هون it's important إنه يكون في distance عن هاي الحديث اللي دايما عم يرجع.
So let's say what we're saying is actually the right approach. I'm not saying that what we're thinking is wrong.
Sure.
I'm pretty convinced that way of thinking is a healthier, far more noble approach to the suffering of refugees.
Sure.
Okay, so we can put that now on the side. Do you think we are in any way being ideological at a time where most Lebanese are looking at that as problematic? We're assuming that most Lebanese are eager to do the right thing too. And I don't know if we're maybe better appreciating real anxiety, and that could be going in a direction that's very destructive. So I'll give an example. The way we're talking about it, it's academic and it's objective and it's nuanced in that. And then you hear the worst remarks coming from villagers in the mountains that are eager to partition the country and get out.
Sure.
And they have no curiosity in the suffering of anyone. They want to see their Lebanon survive.
Sure.
Is there anything media is doing wrong and maybe not approaching that other side of the argument with a little more attention? Because I think all the articles I read, and maybe I'm also in a certain echo chamber, subscribe to what you're saying and what you're saying, Amira. But then you have most Lebanese not thinking this way.
You're making a good point. Like it's always, you have to be completely, if you're thinking about the refugee issue, if you're thinking about what negative consequences it could have on the economy, it's immediately framed as a racist.
Yeah.
So it's either if you think this way, you're a racist, and if you don't, you're unpatriotic.
Yeah.
So you can't be...
No middle ground.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, yeah.
And you're right. Newspapers should consider that other...
So how could that be done by the side that is trying to do the right thing? I don't expect NBN and OTV, or maybe even certain personalities on LBC and MTV.
Yes.
I don't expect them to stand tall.
Yes.
But how would those that are standing tall in their profession, how would they approach this subject?
I think they can explain best how the economic crisis is not the fault. Like, in spite of the fact that Syrian refugees could have negative consequences on the infrastructure or the economy, they can make it clear that the economic crisis is not the result of refugees being in Lebanon, for example.
Yeah.
In a scientific way.
Yeah. Do you find yourself wanting to do that?
Of course.
Okay. Yeah. I think that seems to be the more
reasonable
or the more attractive approach to try not to throw away the other side completely.
It's the most unique, and I think few people do it.
Yeah.
I know Jad Ghusl sometimes mentions it this way, or Ramaz Al-Adi on Al-Jadid.
Yeah, right.
But few people do that.
Yeah.
I mean, when you talk science and people take it personal, you don't stop talking science.
Also, sorry, you were gonna say something.
إذا كان عم يحكي لأنه عن presenting scientific facts
See, I don't know if this is...
in a way of finding middle ground.
Right.
ما بعرف إنه if you
I want to find a formula where you can talk about Christian anxiety and Syrian refugees with the same emotion.
Yes.
And I don't think there's a formula yet that's been put together.
ليه بدك تكون في same emotions?
See, what you just asked, exactly. It's because I think the other side, that's if there's two sides here, I don't know if that's even right. Other side is on its own journey, and we're not there for it.
I don't get what you mean.
Okay.
Don't you think it's a national issue? برجع على نفس الموضوع أنا. Don't you think it's a national issue? هلا غير إنه في polarization بالopinions كتير بس إنه.
I agree with Wael in terms of your heart is in the right place, but I don't know if their heart, meaning remote, xenophobic, demographically insecure villagers or whoever, Taslik, Batroun, some parts of Ashrafiya too, I don't know if their heart is in the wrong place.
Yeah, definitely. We're talking about our relatives, of course.
Yes, exactly.
Nice people who think this way.
Yeah.
They can be manipulated into thinking this way, definitely.
Yeah.
And I think other than making it scientific that the economic crisis is not a result of Syrian refugees, let's remember who allowed more than 1 million refugees to come to Lebanon without any plan whatsoever. It's the Lebanese state. So if anyone was to blame on why we have so many refugees in the country, it's not the refugees who are fleeing these countries to escape wars and anything. It's the Lebanese state that should be blamed and that the people should be angry at.
وهن this state didn't regulate نسيت وين حضرته يمكن جاد غصن ما عملوا تنظيم مزبوط للمخيمات للاجئين
ما عملوا أي إجراء صح.
يعني كان عم بيفوت لاجئين وما كان عم بيكون في تنظيم
right.
وخلص صارت out of control.
وقت كان there was a debate between 14th and 8th of March about the Syrian refugees. 8th of March wanted to place them in camps. And this is according to the former interior minister, at the time, Marwan Sharbel. 14th of March, because they were against the Syrian regime, they could empathize with the refugees more. And they were like, oh, these are our relatives, we have to treat them with dignity. So because of this debate between the two political factions, they couldn't make any decisions, which is unfortunate, because they should have.
I mean like 18 14 و 18 إنه نرجع على نفس الموضوع على التقسيمات.
Yeah. No, I always think about this, that there's a narrative that took hold in the country that most of us don't really look at with fairness. We look at it as...
I mean, you are trying to look at that too.
I'm trying,
fairness.
and I find very few friends on the way.
Yes,
and
that's true, yeah. It's always either or, no?
Exactly, yeah. And I think the tendency is to go further left on the issue, and that way seem like it's delivering the right message.
Sure.
But whereas most of the country is not there.
Sure.
And that, I think, if it's explained the right way, the way you're describing, that's the best way possible. And I like your emphasis on you don't shy away from science when people are ignoring it. But can you really talk to a devout religious believer about the merits of atheism? It doesn't really sit well with them either. So there has to be a way to communicate this narrative. Communication, yeah.
No. Plus, I think you have to simplify things.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of you have to عم نحكي عن ما بدك تجي مع judgement.
Yeah.
يعني when you want to open a discussion ما فيك تجي مع judgement. إذا بدك تجي مع judgement بطلت conversation.
In your profession, have you ever faced that issue where you're approaching something with judgment and you catch yourself?
I was approaching something with judgment.
Yeah.
As a clinical psychologist, I doubt it, right?
I'm trained to do that.
Yeah.
And that's why I think a lot of people هيك feel comfortable talking to me لأنه I'm very neutral, I'm very objective.
So I'm glad you said that. You approach your career, your profession without judgment.
Definitely.
Do you think enough journalists are approaching this issue without judgment?
No.
Okay, that's maybe the best way I'm trying to explain this issue.
Okay.
It took me time to get there. Yeah, but there's a judgment that's maybe not entirely fair.
Sure. I mean, most journalists would be on the side that would blame refugees, but these journalists who sympathize with Syrian refugees, they don't approach this issue with no judgment. You're right.
Yeah. Thank you for letting me batter that issue down. Because it's the first time I actually talk about it and like trying to understand why the Christians want divorce. And we're not necessarily, we don't resonate with them. I'm increasingly convinced that that is a narrative that has taken on, it has legs now, it's walking.
Yeah, maybe.
And it's the kind of people we should be able to still communicate with.
Sure.
And it's like, no, that's your issue. You play with it as much as you want. We want out.
My Lebanon, your Lebanon.
More like your refugee issue, not ours.
Sure.
Yeah, that to me doesn't seem right. It seems like there's something lost because I don't think anyone wants refugees for the sake of it. These are suffering people living here. But I don't think any Lebanese are like, the more refugees, the better. That's not true. They seem to think that though.
True.
So they're missing something and we're not saying it the right way too.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah, there's something there. And I think, if anything, it lives in what you just said. No judgment to an unhealthy person. You don't judge them prior to talking to them. This is an unhealthy conflict, but we're applying a lot of judgment.
For sure.
Oh, this is what fuels the threat. يلا.
Yes, exactly.
The media enjoys it يعني.
Yeah.
ويلا.
There's no fire extinguisher where it should be. It's almost like you're putting out
اللي بيطفي النار.
Hey, في fire, بس في fire extinguisher على
عم نحط مازوت.
Yeah. No, we have some fire extinguisher, but it's not going to the fire. It's going to like the water.
Sure.
It's like, no, man, that's where the fire is. Okay, I will ask one more thing, and then Amira, you have as much, say whatever you'd like. I want to get into the most sensitive subject you wrote about.
It's kind of related to this one.
Yeah.
Because we're talking about change and how change happens, how you can convince someone of something. It doesn't happen by framing them as being racist or homophobic or whatever.
Now I'm going to title it, 3 Lebanese intellectuals tell us what they think of the recent Quran burning incident in Sweden by Wael Taleb. What a great career, I don't know if you want your name right there, but yeah. First, why are you covering a story about a Swedish religious text burning? I mean, I didn't know what you were trying to... There's a motive here that I didn't understand.
Yes.
This is a remote issue happening in Sweden. This is a recent piece that came out just a few days ago. So why are you talking about Islam, holy text, and how Lebanese think about it in Sweden?
And is it Islamophobia, do you think?
The act itself?
Yeah.
I mean, why I wrote about it is because I knew this, everyone knows, because this discussion will happen everywhere, whether this act is within the frame of freedom of expression or not. Even in Lebanon, this will be discussed. I was wondering what people in Lebanon think, and I think in general, now with political correctness, with the so-called woke, I think in Lebanon, I will say something that might seem insane, but I think in a way we can express our opinions without fearing judgment more than a lot of countries in the West. We wouldn't be cancelled or something just because we are discussing these issues. So in a way, we have the capacity to do that here more than a lot of countries that advocate for freedom of expression, but nowadays are struggling to...
So what you're saying is we're so damn politically incorrect. We can talk about everything.
The upside of that is that you can test ideas and brainstorm. So you have the capacity for that.
So you've taken on the mantle of going in every direction.
And
could you call it just briefly color the piece for us, just the general story of what happened? Because I know the snippets, I know the headlines, but what exactly did this Iraqi Swedish man do, and what exactly happened after?
And what did the intellectual people you met say about this?
Basically,
Can you walk us through the piece
what
of it?
everyone knows. He fled to Sweden 2 years ago, I think. He ripped some pieces of the Quran and he burnt the Quran in front of a mosque on Eid al-Adha.
And he's young. He's in his maybe 30s,
37.
Early 30s.
37. Yeah.
Maybe 37, but I think younger. Yeah, you can say. Yeah, and lots of backlash happened after that. And the Swedish authorities actually charged him for creating
37.
tensions. I don't know what the legal term for that charge was, but the Swedish authorities actually charged him. And it prompted a lot of protests in a lot of countries, especially in Iraq, where it took a violent turn. They tried to attack the Swedish embassy. They burned LGBT flags, and Muqtada Sadr was advocating for that. So this is what happened, and I wondered what, because I can't ask like a Swedish person about what they think, whether they think this is within the frame of freedom of expression or not. I had to ask some Lebanese intellectuals about it, which is what I did. I asked your former guest, most recent guest, Jad Shahrur, about it. And I asked Sheikh, who's a former Dar al-Fatwa member. And the head of Adyan, Elias, I forget what his
Yes, I forgot his last
See how
name
you
too.
find the middle ground?
That's well said. You're right. Yeah.
أخذ الأوبينيون تبع 3 أشخاص كلهم خصهم بهالموضوع.
Yeah.
And what the Sheikh said wasn't
He
wasn't the most politically correct thing.
Right.
And
What did he say?
and people questioned whether I should leave it in the article or not, but I insisted.
So if you could
because
share that section with us, yeah.
Yeah, because it's representative of what a lot of people feel, at least, whether it's true or not. The Sheikh said that he fears that the West discriminates between issues that have to do with Arabs and Muslims and issues like LGBT issues or anti-Semitism issues. He claimed that if it was a Jewish issue, people would have lost their minds around it. Whereas he didn't think that they minded the burning of the Quran as much. And whether this is true or not, that's how a lot of people feel. To be fair, the Swedish authorities did charge this man, maybe because of the backlash that happened after, but they did charge him
with inciting hatred towards an ethnic group or
something like that.
Yeah.
I forgot what the legal term for it.
I think Muqtada Sadr, he said you need to bring him back to Iraq so we can take care of him.
Yeah, that's true. They were calling for that.
Calling for his return.
Yeah, and the man was like, oh, in 10 days I will do it again in front of the Iraqi embassy.
It's a little too much.
That's true.
Yeah.
But it is a healthy discussion to have whether this should be something to punish legally or not, or whether it is in the framework of the freedom of expression.
What did Jad Shahrur say?
Jad said it depends on the culture of the country and the laws of this country, and accordingly, it would differ from country to country, and I think that's a very reasonable thing. What Elias from Adyan said is, he's against the act, of course, but he said change doesn't come, like what we were discussing earlier. Change doesn't come through labeling people as racist or homophobic or anti this religion or Islamophobic or whatever. Change happens through discussion, healthy discussion, social cohesion. When you have discussions without judgment, you can reach a level where people accept each other more, and you would reach a stage where you don't experience a burning of the Quran as a result. And I think that's the more healthy way to deal with any quote unquote hate crime, or if someone says something too politically incorrect, it's better to instead of to censor this, to let it out there and engage in a discussion about whether this is right or not. I think this is the more healthy approach.
I want to ask your opinion. I know you're not interviewing yourself for that article, but when you see that kind of image,
Yes.
it doesn't have to be that specific story. It could be anybody doing something like that.
Okay.
Forget him in Sweden. Let's say any protest that emerges from a what is the word when you defame a holy text?
Sure.
What kind of where do you stand? Since we're so politically incorrect, I assume you would have a politically incorrect opinion.
I think it's useless. It doesn't do any good. And it only offends people and makes them angry. So I don't see the upside of this of such an act.
Not the value of the act. Okay, let me ask it differently. You're a writer, a reporter, and features writer, and a linguist.
That's a big claim, but sure.
I studied linguistics. He is, in a way, upholding the extreme version of what you do, which is expression.
Yes.
It's a very extreme, very ugly, almost like he's taking it to its limit, which is here are words a prophet recited.
Sure.
I'm going to burn it.
Yes.
I don't know if any of that is illegal.
If it should be illegal.
No, I don't know what the reaction to that. I'll say it from my side. Reacting to him, I think, is worse than his protest. Giving him the unnecessary attention is, I think, worse than the act itself.
Sure.
الحديث عم بيذكرني بشارلي إبدو.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
I was going to say the same thing. Like opening that magazine and talking about it and condemning it is worse than the vulgarity of that magazine.
Yeah, but people react emotionally,
So-
not strategically, right?
You're right.
So I think السؤال هو وين الفاين لاين
Where's your fine line?
تبع هيدي freedom of speech هيدي لا بطلت freedom of speech.
So yeah, freedom of speech and expression is something I'm very passionate about.
Yeah.
Some of the politically correct rhetorics really give me allergies.
Can you describe that? You keep saying it. So what is a politically correct?
I mean the concept itself. I'm all for emphasizing with the minorities and refugees, and yeah, you should respect your feelings more. But there shouldn't be. I mean, I don't know if there should, but the line seems to be growing, and people are not comfortable talking about expressing very reasonable opinions of them because they feel intimidated, or they sometimes feel they're gonna lose their jobs. No, sometimes if you express something on Twitter nowadays, you lose your job because of this. So this part I don't like. I think every person should consider the feelings of the minorities and refugees and all sorts of undermined groups. But
So in that case, he's the minority and refugee in Sweden.
at the same time,
Yeah, shouldn't we be so open to his hatred of Islam? I'm trying to think why does this issue cause such a storm,
yes.
and really what you think about it as a journalist, where your opinion stands.
Going back to the discussion though, whether there should be censorship on speech or not, I haven't baby, but the line is a very tricky thing to place. Like there are times where when a politician or an influential person says something, it creates violence. And if it's the case, should there be censorship against such an act? Probably yes, but placing the line is a very tricky thing to do. It's I don't envy Elon Musk owning Twitter because he has to do it, but he's an advocate of the freedom of expression, whether this is honest or not. But he has a very hard mission to make when it comes to that. When it comes to the burning of the Quran, if he should be punished legally, I answered like he shouldn't be doing such an act. So should we react to it? Should people react to him? I think a lot of right-wing religious groups believe that they should react to him, because it would intimidate others from doing it ideologically, and that's why Salman Rushdie, for example,
Yeah.
Nasrallah had a speech years before saying that if people killed Salman Rushdie, the Charlie Hebdo people, or maybe not the Charlie Hebdo, but the Denmark people who also burned the Quran,
Yes,
wouldn't have had the courage to do it.
Yeah.
So they, and I think it's an effective tool somehow. I don't think it would stop it completely, but I see the logic behind it.
So you're able to say that you would not do what he's doing as an act of protest.
Definitely, me personally.
You have no curiosity there, but you would not necessarily go down the more politically correct road, which is he's violating Muslim rights.
Oh, I didn't say that. I don't.
Yeah, so I'm trying to get where you stand on something like that happening, because in a way it's again it's just an extreme version of expression.
Yes.
So where is your line in that story?
I think because his act could create violence, I think that should be the line.
That's the line. Okay.
بس هل الفاين لاين بتصير لما تصير collective violence؟
Not necessarily. I mean, you tell me what you think. I don't think it's about an individual doing this or a collective act. I also don't think this guy should be killed or anything. He should be protected.
Celebrating him seems off.
Yes.
Definitely.
He's not a hero.
Yes.
He's, I think, more attention-seeking than anything.
I don't know if it's attention-seeking or he is full of hatred because of the country or the atmosphere he was living in.
Sure, full of hatred. I think when you decide to do that in front of a mosque rather than in front of a forest or
Yes.
in your home, where you could burn whatever you want, don't burn your home down. He's doing it in front of a religious institution. He's targeting an audience. That in itself means he wants a select audience to watch him, and he feels like he's protected from the state, meaning that audience cannot do anything about it.
Sure.
So I'm here, F you,
Yes.
F your text. To me, that's more like views generating, insights, almost exposure. It's not a healthy debate.
It's definitely not a healthy debate.
Right. So there's that.
But is he
There's no
seeking?
debate,
But
by
is
the
he?
There's no debate. Yeah, but I mean,
Is he purely seeking attention? I mean, there's a phase called teenage atheism that a lot of teenagers go through, and they would blame religion for everything that's wrong in the world. No.
a 37-year-old Iraqi refugee.
But he only traveled 2 years ago to Sweden.
Sure.
So he's living his teenage
في
atheism
كل
phase, no?
context, I think. I agree with him.
Okay, you know what? I'll say it differently. He's not doing it for his own sake. He's doing it so that other people see him do it. And he even said, which you're right, I'll be back in 10 days in front of the embassy. Which means the man is on a mission. He's not just burning because he hates it. So let's say there's a political story there too. I think he can express whatever the hell he wants. But covering him in a way that seems like there's a war between Islam and Sweden, or refugees and locals, or secularism and whatever, religiosity, that I think, covering it that way makes everything worse.
So you're not against covering the incident? You're against how they are covering it?
Yes, the narrative surrounding that incident, I think, blows things out of proportion, where it turns one man's struggle into a clash of civilizations. And I don't think that's true.
Sure, I think they can't escape covering the incident. But yeah, I agree with you. They should put it in perspective.
Yeah, this is where politically correct and incorrect, that's where it lives, I think. Which
Sure.
is, are you trying to push an ideology on this story? Or are you really just observing it for what it is?
For sure.
Yeah.
My modest opinion, I'm not the journalist here, but I think journalism is about how you convey the message. يعني
Right.
the news anyone هلا فيني أنا أجي خبرك نفس الشيء اللي كل العالم عم تخبرك إياه. It's how I tell the news.
It's putting it in perspective. Yeah, it's figuring out what the right news is, like what's facts, and putting them in perspective. For sure.
Yeah. Have you ever been motivated to write about a story that would get you more exposure only for that reason?
Personally speaking,
Yeah.
not really.
That's why I like him.
I know.
So he doesn't like Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. More accurate reporting and better quality writing.
It has a selfish part, actually. I cover the stories that I'm interested in. So I wouldn't force myself to write a story because it would give me more clickbaity. More readers are gonna see it. So
I think less people are doing this nowadays.
I completely agree. But that is really why I kept pushing you at the beginning to figure out why you're doing this. Yeah.
But that's not necessarily a good thing, no? Because you have to market yourself. Like if I'm writing an article and I don't have much followers on Twitter or Instagram, few people are gonna read them, as opposed to if I'm working on my exposure, so that when I write an article, a lot of people are gonna see them. No? So it's not necessarily the right choice to make.
I'll end it with my thoughts, and maybe Amira, I'll let you have the final say at the end. You can say whatever you'd like. I'll just share my last thoughts. I think that is the right decision. And the reason I say that is I get this feedback all the time. Make your episodes shorter. Do them in more targeted ways. Be more confrontational. Why don't you sound more like that?
Yes.
Why don't you talk more like that? Even when there's a hysteria happening, let's say a story comes out of nowhere and there's a convenient target, go after that target. Your clicks will go up.
Yes.
What drives me insane, followers, views. Elon Musk, your friend, made it now accessible. You see how many people viewed your tweet, not engaged it. This is just a numbers thing. Well, the reason I fully agree with you is because none of this matters. What matters is that you're reaching the audience you want to reach. And if that's 10% of the person next door who's sharing garbage, then you've already found that the 10% you're reaching are the ones you always intended to reach. The 90% have nothing to do with you. They have no interest in what you're writing, and they're not meant to.
بس هون you risk to be in an echo chamber.
I think Instagram and I don't know TikTok, I'm not on it, but that is where the echo chamber thrives. You're doing it just to build an angrier audience and a bigger base of muscle that gets you nowhere. And people post accordingly.
But there's also the financial aspect, no? If you're only resonating with 1%, you're not gonna be newspapers are not gonna want to employ you because you don't have much exposure. No?
I beg to differ. I think a decent newspaper, a credible newspaper, would hire you over somebody just posting trash for clicks.
Quality, not quantity.
I believe that. I actually firmly believe that, which puts me back to something I said earlier. You're not just a journalist. You're not in this just for the sake of it. If you are an activist too, you're doing it the right way. You're pointing everything in the right direction slowly, and you're getting to exactly where you need to be. I'm glad that you're now writing essays, features, pieces. I remember when you wanted to do that, and now you're doing it regularly. So you're already moving in the right direction. And if you lose followers on the way, it's the followers you're meant to lose.
I'll take the compliment.
I believe this. Amira, it's the final. It's all yours. Anything you want to say, it's your grand finale.
حبيت how we found intersections بكتير topics. It was interesting.
Yeah, there should have been more debate and like beating each other up, right? It's more.
هي اختصاصه هو.
No, it's hard to debate with somebody you really respect.
على فكرة بدي أعطي information عنك إذا بدك بتقصة بعدين.
Oh sure, yeah. Go ahead.
روني أكتر حدا ما بيشيك السوشيال ميديا تبعه.
That's a very good thing. I
بينزل ستوريز وبينزل بوست وما حتى بيعرف مين عمل لايك ما حتى بيقرا الكومنتس ما حتى يعني بيرد مرة بالسنة على الكومنتس
It's a very healthy thing.
إلا إذا في عالم رح يقبروا بعضهم حتى الدي امز مش دايما بيرد واتساب أوقات ما بيرد.
Yeah, I think of WhatsApp as social media.
إيه بس إنه.
You really want to reach me? Call me.
Sure.
إيه.
Sure.
True. That's how I catch him actually.
Yeah. I called you today.
Yeah.
I would never waste your time with an Instagram DM. Or I would not chat, yo, Waynick. No, but let's say WhatsApp is also because there's no phone service. We call each other too on WhatsApp. No, I think that's the recipe. You're there because you believe what you're writing and what you're sharing is
believing in what you do.
Not in numbers.
إيه أكيد. وبحس إنه passion I think.
Yeah.
It's what drives.
I agree. But thank you for letting me push you on your personal story. You're kind to let me ask you not just your personal routine or why you got into this profession. You're generous to let me be the first podcast you've been on. You're also generous with your time. Post-editing, no one will tell how long this took. This took a lot of time. You're also gracious to let a new co-host present herself without much preparation.
She was great, actually.
Yeah. So with all those reasons and more, keep writing the way you do, and wherever this journey takes you, I think you're doing it the right way.
Thank you for having me.
It's nice to get to know you better.
It is, and I've been honored to be the guest of Ronnie and
Thank
Amira.
you for coming.
Thanks, Wael. Appreciate
so
it.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amira.
Please help us engage this YouTube channel. So like, comment, and subscribe, and click on the links in the description to contribute to this podcast.